All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this PT workshop. My name is Maureen, and I'm the founder and creator of BarMD. We're a full service bar prep company. So anything you need for the bar exam for California, or if you're taking another jurisdiction, we can assist. And we really are known for the performance test, which is what I'm going to talk about tonight. One thing that I just want to mention is I'm sure many of you here are following what's been going on from the February bar. The meeting on Friday with the Board of Trustees is really crucial because from there, we're going to know if they are going to adopt one of the PT remedies. I think we'll have a really good idea, or not one of, but the PT remedy that was addressed in addition to some other remedies that the bar exam, the board is considering. One of those is the option for a February bar taker to just redo the performance test. I think it's somewhat iffy of them actually doing that because of just the logistics involved and just some fairness issues. But I'm hopeful that they will do it, but we'll see. I think we'll have a really good idea on Friday. And based on that, I created what we're doing as it's a new class. And I'm only, I think, going to do it this July because of this potential remedy. We'll see. I might do it in the future. But what we're doing is called the PT Bootcamp. And so what it is, it starts next Wednesday evening. So I just wanted to talk about it tonight. It starts next Wednesday evening, and it's going to be 6 sessions where I am going to basically do a deep dive into various PTs. So in the full course, we have our Mastering the PT course. So in that course, you get a lot of instruction on how to do a PT, et cetera. If you've done that and you really still want to do some extra digging and you want to really get in on the PT and see really how I basically watch me put a whole PT together, we're going to build that over the period of the boot camp. So we're going to do a different PT each time. And in the beginning, we're going to be working on more of the beginning steps and working on it, but we're going to really walk through to more of a point of completion than I typically do. So it's going to be a really deep dive into the PTs and really talk about I want everybody to know how to write what is a passing PT. What does it look like to just do a passing PT? And then how do we get comfortable writing at that level? And then how do we push it up to a higher passing PT? So that's what we're really going to work on. Going to be just an even deeper dig into the PTs. That's coming up. That's called the PT Bootcamp. So that is really specific to, hopefully it'll do this remedy. And even if they don't do it, if you struggle with the PTs, the bootcamp will be a really good thing for you to do. All right. So anyways, so today I'm going to preview what that's going to look like to an extent. It's not going to be a full session on it. Those classes are going to be 2.5 to 3 hours. Tonight we'll be going for just about an hour. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the PT process, how the PT is written, how to organize it. But really, I want to show you a little bit more of how I pull apart the file and start getting into writing some of the analysis, which I don't normally go into when I do these free webinars, but I wanted to do a little bit of that tonight. All right. So just to mention a couple of good tools for PT prep. So we have our full Mastering the PT course. It's not too late to start. It's designed to be done in about 10 weeks, but that's really just spacing it out. You can definitely do it. We have about 10 weeks to the bar, a little bit less than that, but there's plenty of time. I think we have 9 weeks-ish. There's plenty of time and you can do that. You can do the course. There's all the exercises. It's super in-depth. We also have our PT book, the California edition of it, that is available, and it doesn't come with the course and vice versa, but if I had a course and I wanted there to be a textbook, it would be that book. So I really walk you through each of the steps. There's a lot of color coding of examples and stuff in it too. So people like it. And then the PT Bootcamp that I just mentioned. And also for everybody that's here live, we're doing a promo that I've never done before I'm doing. So that's only if you're here live, and I'll give you the code at the end of this session. So just hang in there. There's actually 2 different promo codes that we're going to do. So just a refresher. So for those of you how many of you this is one of your first sessions and watching me do the PT? So tell me in the chat. I got first timers. How many of you are taking the exam for the first time? Okay, cool. I love having the first timers here. That's great. Awesome. And welcome to everybody. And also welcome to people that have seen this stuff before. I have a YouTube channel where there's a lot of stuff that is posted. I also just want to mention, because I'm recording again for my podcast. Oh, there's a lot of first timers. Welcome, everybody. That makes me so happy. I have a YouTube channel where we have a bunch of the free webinars that I've done in the past are posted on YouTube. This will be posted to YouTube, and I have a podcast. It's just called the BarMD podcast. It's on Spotify. Starting next week, you should start to see new episodes uploading as well. So just be on the lookout for that. It's free, but I'm really excited because I'm going to be doing some deep dives into the law, but I'm also working on drawing out a bunch of like mind maps, diagramming a lot of how the law works. And the thing that I think that makes it unique about how I do it is I think I tend to do it in a really like formulaic and clean way where it's not too much information. I try to just really distill it down to what's necessary and make it very easy to follow. So I'm working on a book of those mind maps, and I'm going to be filming it too at the same time, recording it. So there's going to be some corresponding videos. So if you want to be able to see some of that stuff, that's not going to be coming out for a while, but you can see the mind maps and get some like visual representation. I think you'll find it really helpful. BarMD podcast, it's on Spotify. We're going to get it on Apple Podcasts too. I just haven't done that yet. All right, let's talk about the PC process. So the PC consists of two booklets. So the materials that you have a file and you have a library. In the file, after the instructions, the first document is what we call a task memo. And you're going to review the task memo. When you review it, and this stuff I go into in my book and I go into in the courses, I'm just going to kind of review briefly the PT process. So there's 5 things you want to look for when you have the task memo. So you want to know is the tone. So is it objective or persuasive? You want to know who your audience is. Who are you writing to? So are you writing to your client? Are you writing to the court, opposing counsel, etc.? What's the product that you're preparing? So are you writing a memo? Are you writing a letter to opposing counsel? Are you writing a letter to a client? Are you writing a closing argument? Are you writing a brief? Those are the most common tasks, but you just want to know, and you want to have practiced all of the really common tasks and just know what that looks like. We have templates for this stuff in my book and in the courses as well. So what's the product? You want to know how you're organizing the body of your PT. So you always have headings in your PT. So what are your headings? How do you organize the issues that are presented? So you want to identify that. That's probably the biggest first hurdle. And then finally, you want to note if there's any special instructions. So we go through the task memo. It's about 5 minutes. We identify those things. I'm going to walk you through that this evening. And then you're going to set up your skeletal outline, and you do this directly in your exam answer. I'm going to show you what that looks like tonight. After that, we take a few minutes and we skim the file. And I just want to point out, because a lot of people don't realize this, the skim of the file is just to give you a sense of what's going on. It's like you get a little taste, right? It's your amuse-bouche before you go in and actually you dig into the library, etc. You skim the file, but you will come back in step 6 and read the whole file in depth later on. So you don't get everything out of the skim. You're just getting a sort of sense of what's going on. It helps to give the library a bit of context as you're reading it. That's why I like to do it. But step 3 is something that I do tell people that they can skip if they find that they really run out of time a lot. Step 4, skim and read the library. So this is a big step. This is where probably most people lose time, and you have to really get used to reading it strategically. We're going to look at that a little bit today. After that, you're going to draft once we get through the library. And one thing I really like to tell people, and I think this is also why people lose a lot of time, when we're skimming until we skim part of the case until we get to the meat of it, then we read. But when we are going through step 4, we're really trying to deconstruct the library, understand why they gave us each thing that is in the library. Why do they give us this case? What issue am I using it for? Am I going to analogize to that case or distinguish from that case? What about statutes? Why did they give that stuff to me? And what am I going to use? And the key with that is all we're trying to do is assign where that piece of the library goes in my answer. So does it go to issue 1? Does it go to issue 2? Does it go to issue 3? I'm not at step 4. I am not going through it for understanding. And that is something that a lot of people grapple with. And I think it makes it really difficult timing wise, if that's you. So If you're really trying to get a really good grasp on, okay, what does this mean? How does this work, et cetera, you're going to run out of time. I get the understanding at step 5. So that's where I get my understanding is when I'm actually typing in my rules and when I'm drafting what I call the rule proofs. There's a lot of people that are here for the first time. The rule proofs, I use the formula that is listed under point 5. I use that formula. And somebody asked if I recommend to do the PT in my PT book. Yeah, I recommend doing all of them. I recommend, just FYI, I recommend doing 8 to 12 PTs total, 8 at a minimum. 8 at a minimum. All right. So drafting the rules and the rule proofs. So you use this formula. A rule proof, the rules you type them in, you copy them. You don't use copy paste because we're going to have hard copies, right? So we don't have a copy paste function. But so we're just going to type in the rules verbatim. It's fine to do that. You don't have to edit them. And then the rule proof is explaining how the court in the case in the library, how do they take the law and apply it to the facts of the case in the library? So you're just showing, okay, in that case, the court held X and Y because facts and reasoning. And you do that so that you can analogize to the facts of the case or distinguish from to show whether we should have the same result or a different result. So that's something that definitely takes practice. Yeah, it's something that definitely takes practice. And in the boot camp, I'm going to expect that everybody comes to class having written the PT and having tried to write their rule proof, et cetera. So you should definitely come to class having done that. That way you can then compare to what I do and when I'm walking you through it. And then you can have the opportunity to ask questions as well. Drafting rules in your rule proofs. This takes about 15 minutes. And once we're done with step 5, we're done with the library. We put it away, just totally done with it. So then that's what we want. And remember that step 5, that's where the understanding for me comes in. After that, then we're going to go back to the file and I'm going to actually read it. So I'm going to read through it in depth. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to mark it up. I'm going to annotate it. And then I'm going to start actually writing my analysis. And in the PT Bootcamp, we're going to get into writing analysis more than I do in other classes. I do it obviously in the PT book and in the course, but like here, we're going to do it, I think, a lot more just throughout the bootcamp. And then step 8 is proofread. To be honest, most of the time from proofreading, usually for me, goes into writing the analysis. Proofreading is usually more like 1 minute, truthfully, because we want as much time as possible to go into the analysis. The whole point of doing steps 1 through 5 is so that we have a really good time doing, and we have as much time as possible to get through the file and to draft our analysis. The analysis is the key. It's absolutely the most important thing. We want to make sure that you do that really well and that you are not spending less than 25 minutes on the analysis. All right, so we're going to get into it. I'm going to just walk you through this a bit. So I'm going to pull up this PT. I'm going to share my iPad. So I just put the link in the chat so that you can download it. It's the October 2020 PT from that first COVID bar exam, which was wild for anybody that remembers. All right. Let me just get it pulled up. All right. Let's see. Somebody's asking how they changed from messaging the host and panelists to everyone. You just changed the 2 in the chat box. Just change it to everyone. All right. Let me put this up on the screen. Okay. Can y'all see that? You should be able to. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So, right litigation. Okay. So I always start off the 5 things that I want to identify that I mentioned at the beginning. I know I went through it a little quickly. This is all broken down more in the class. It's broken down more in the book, etc. I'm going to just get into it. So Janice Wright, a longtime client, has retained us. So I'm going to identify this as our client. Has retained us on a matter concerning unauthorized credit card charges run up by her son, Ryan, for online purchases connected to an online video gaming website called GamerTracks. At Ryan's request, Janice gave him permission to open an account using her credit card. She told him he could charge no more than $20. He ended up charging $9,000. After receiving her credit card bill, she sent a letter to GamerTracks asking for a reversal of the $8,980 charge. The GamerTracks declined. She would like our help in determining whether she can avoid paying some or all of the charges. I have already determined that Ryan was able to and did, in fact, enter into a contract with GamerTracks. So that I may discuss this matter with Janice, please prepare a memorandum that answers the following questions. 1, is Ryan able to disapprove the contract? It's funny, I just got a little typo, got a period. 2, if so, did Janice's letter disaffirm the contract for Ryan? And 3, is Janice liable for the $8,980 charge? Do not include a statement of facts, but do use the facts in its body. So we're preparing a memo. So tone, if it's a memo, it's objective. Who's my audience? It's my boss. The product that I'm preparing is a memo. Organization, I'm going to organize by these 3 issues. Okay. And then special instructions, no statement of facts. All right. Everybody following along? Okay, cool. Oh, hey, Bernadette. All right, good. All right. So now I'm going to just go on to step 2. And I'm going to do a quick setup. All right, let me switch over. All right. So it's a memo. So to my boss, which is Marjorie Turner, from applicant date October 6th, 2020, Ray, potential litigation, introduction, analysis, conclusion. Okay. So at this stage, I do write a quick intro. Below, please find my analysis regarding whether Ryan is able to disaffirm the contract, whether Janice's letter did disaffirm the contract for Ryan, and whether Janice is liable for the $8,980. Okay. Okay, so analysis. So is Ryan able to disaffirm the contract? If so, and we're just typing these same things out. Somebody asked if the workshops are similar to what I'm doing right now. Yeah, but I'm gonna go a little slower in the workshops. I go a little bit slower there because we have a bit more time. Here we have about an hour. In the workshop, it's 2.5 hours. So we're gonna go through more a little bit more explaining. All right. If so, did Janice's letter disaffirm the contract? And the PT bootcamp is really an extra. It's really like you've done the course and you really want to push it a little bit, or you have the course and you want to really push your PT writing and have that accountability and join live. That's what the bootcamp is really for. It's like, all right, let's do it a bit more. And then let's see. And with the boot camp, I would expect everybody to come to class with their PT done. Like I said, is Janice liable for the 8980? Okay. All right. And then I'm going to do a quick conclusion. So below, oh, not below. Oh, it has been, sorry. Sorry, I was stuck in an airport all night last night, operating on zero sleep. So I apologize. Thank you for allowing me to conduct this analysis for you. If I can be of further assistance, please let me know. Okay. So I just put in a quick intro and a quick conclusion. I also, and these things I have, if you haven't watched like my longer PT YouTube videos, you should. Or if you haven't done the class, obviously I recommend that. But I go into, what these things are and a rule proof, etc., more in the class. And obviously like in some of the other workshops that are posted. I wanted to show you guys how we're going to dig into the materials a little bit more in the boot camp. So I put these in. These are my placeholders. Just really briefly, each of these is a placeholder for a paragraph or paragraphs. So R is our rules. So I'm going to have the rules that apply to this first issue. I would have a rule proof, which is explaining again how these rules, how the court in whatever case applied these rules to the parties in the case in the library. I'm usually going to have several analysis paragraphs. Sometimes it's just one. Ideally, it's a little bit more. So every PT must have counter arguments, but you do not have to have a counter argument for every issue. So this is just a placeholder. If I'm going to do a counter argument for this issue, it would go here and then conclusion. So I don't have a rule proof for every issue, and I often have multiple analysis paragraphs. So just as a heads up on that. All right. So let's get back into it. Let's do step 3, which is skimming the file. Go back to my iPad. And somebody had asked, do I copy the intro from the task memo? No, I copy what the information is. I just basically, from the task memo, I just copy into my intro. But yeah, sorry, somebody asked, do I copy the intro from the task memo? Not exactly. I just say, below, please find my analysis regarding, and I take the issues in the task memo, and that's it. If it's a memo. If it's other tasks, the intro will vary slightly. And also, if you're someone that runs out of time always on a PT, you can cut the intro. You can cut the to from date ray. The most important thing is the meat of it, the stuff that goes under the analysis heading. All right, let's skim this file. So I like to note in the top right corner what the document is. So this is just an internal memo to file from our client or from the boss about the meeting with the client. So this is a meeting summary, I think. Okay. When I skim the file, I'm just looking at the first line, not even the first whole sentence, just the first line from each paragraph. So I met with longtime client Janet Wright yesterday to discuss a matter. Okay. GamerTrack's website allows users to play a wide array of online video games. The GamerTrack's website allows users to buy certain options. Okay. So you can buy options. Okay. 2 months ago, at Ryan's request, Janice gave Ryan permission to open the credit card to buy some options. Ryan opened a GamerTrack's treasure account. In doing so, he clicked the terms and conditions. Okay. And then here I agree to provide a valid credit card. Okay. I agree that I am authorized to use a valid credit or debit. I agree that all transactions I may enter to obtain. Okay. I'm under the age of 18, so he's a minor. GamerTrack's contacted Janice and she verified that she had given Ryan permission. After opening the GamerTrack's treasure account, Ryan started playing. Okay. When Janice received her credit card bill, so you see, it's a little choppy, but that's okay. I'm just trying to get a sense of what happened here. Okay, and then here is, it looks like Janice's letter to GamerTrack's. Okay, I'm writing to request that you reverse the amount. Okay. Of $89.80. So thanks for your prompt attention. Okay. All right. And now we have the library. So not a really big file. So one thing with PTs in general, we can look and see like where the balance is. So the file's a little small here, fine, but it looks like we have a bigger library. So there might be a little bit of shifting of the time how much time do we have to read the file versus it's not going to take me so long to read this one. It's not going to take me 15 minutes. So I'm going to have more time to write the analysis, but it also might take me a little bit longer to go through the library, and that's okay. So just we want to be aware of that as we're going into it. All right. So now we are on to step 4. So when I start off and I have statutes and then I have cases, I usually want to just skim the statutes, go to the cases, see if the cases talk about the statutes. And then if necessary, come back to, you would always want to come back to the statutes. But often we'll have statutes and then the statutes will be in the cases, but the cases make it easier to understand the statutes. They write them more cleanly. So usually I want to cite to the actual statute, but use the language from the case. Okay. So this is from the Columbia Civil Code, agency defined. We talk about actual authority, apparent authority, creation of actual authority, creation of apparent authority, and binding effect. Okay. So a bunch of stuff on apparent authority and actual authority. Then we have here a minor's power to contract, a minor's power to disaffirm, and then the exception to the minor's power to disaffirm. Okay. All right. So now we're going to get into the cases. So Miller. I remember I always write, let's see. I always like to write the case name in the top right corner. And the reason is because I'm going to take notes. I'm going to make notes in the skeletal outline of what cases I'm going to use for which issues. So I don't want to be like scrambling and try to remember. I want to flip through my materials faster. So I do that by just like making a little note about what case this is. Okay. So I say step 4, it's skim and read. So we skim a case and like we just did a little skim of the statutes, but we skim a case until we get to the procedural history. You do not need to spend a bunch of time reading through all these introductory fact paragraphs. The legally significant facts will be they'll be in the analysis section of the case. So I'll show you that. And a lot of people are hesitant about this. And it's something you have to get used to and get comfortable with. But I will tell you, I do not read the fact paragraphs in these PTs. I have written my answers without looking at them. So I will just say that, like, I have not read the facts of this PT that are in the beginning. So here it says, by its complaint, Bryce Miller sought judgment against his mother, Josephine. So this is facts. You can write out facts. If it's you on the PT, time is so important in the exam. You could just do F for facts. Sometimes I like doing that because I'm like, I'm giving the bar an S, but that's all right. Okay, so facts. Okay, Bryce was born on March 11th, 1940. This is facts. Generally, they're not going to include like a fact paragraph like this and then rules. So the reason we're looking for the procedural history is because usually right after the procedural history is when they're going to start getting into rules. And that's what we really want, because after the rules, they're going to get into the analysis. Okay. So then it says, by this action, Bryce seeks to recover. So now we're talking about the cause of action. We're talking about the procedure. So here, procedural history. So this is where I'm going to start reading. Oh, that's cool. Somebody just said that they followed my technique and got a 70 on the PT. I get this all the time, as somebody just said that in the Q&A, which is really exciting, especially for February. That's insane. Okay. By this action, Bryce seeks to recover the $26,000 received by Josephine. There can be no doubt that Josephine held this money for Bryce. By her contract with him, she had relinquished any right to any of it. He was entitled to recover all of it, unless Family CFC Section 6703 stood in the way. Under that provision, a minor under the care of a parent who is unable to provide for him may contract to pay the reasonable value of things necessary for his support and that of his family, and may not disaffirm such a contract. So here's a rule. That being true, it must follow that the minor can authorize the use of money held for him for those purposes and cannot recover the money thus paid out. So just basically saying the same thing. So here's the rule for minor disaffirmance. Okay. In entering judgment for Josephine, the trial court found that she expended the $26,000 she had received for herself and for Bryce. That finding, however, was insufficient to support the judgment. The court did not find that Josephine expended the money for herself and for Bryce for things necessary for their support. So this is talking about, this is the analysis. So I would label the analysis because for the analysis, I'm going to use what is in the analysis to draft what I call the rule proof. That's why it's important. That's why I label it. Or like down here, the evidence showed that at all relevant times, Josephine had an independent and substantial source of income. It also showed that she expended the $26,000 she had received, as she herself admitted, for the good things of life, not necessities. What issue does this sound like it's dealing with? Remember, we have, can Bryce disaffirm? Did the letter disaffirm? And is Janice liable? What issue is this? 1, 2, or 3? Anybody? Yeah, this is for issue 1. This is for issue 1. Because this is talking about, if we look at the rule, is dealing with a minor disaffirming a contract. And this rule here is when a minor cannot disaffirm the contract. So, and then they say, in this case, was the minor able to disaffirm the contract? And so here an entry done for Josephine. And this is why. This is what is legally significant. So generally a minor can disaffirm the contract. It's the general rule. You can disaffirm unless the contract was for a minor. The minor was under the care of a parent who was unable to provide for him. And the items purchased were things that were necessary for the support of the minor. And here they say a couple of things. Let's see. Yeah. Says the court did not find that she expended the money for herself and for Bryce they weren't for things necessary for the support. The parent had an independent and substantial source of income. So it wasn't, the minor was not under the care of a parent who couldn't care for them. And the purchases weren't for things necessary for the support of the minor. So this goes to issue 1. And so I would go back to my skeletal outline and I would note, okay, issue 1, I'm going to use Miller for the rule, and I'm going to do a rule proof of Miller also, because this case analyzes, we're dealing with issue 1. And I want to just show everybody one thing also. So I'm going to highlight here the analysis. I want you just to look at how much analysis is here. Not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of analysis here. Let's go on to the next issue. So Martha Thomas and her minors of Craig appeal the judgment. This is facts. In 1999, Brady entered. This is just facts. In 2001, Craig obtained. This is facts. In 2002, Brady filed suit against Craig. So now they're talking about filing suit. And that's the procedural history. And I am going to show how I'm going to write the rule proof. But and Marco, in the class, we're going to get more into it. I think you're in the class. Because it really does take a little bit of time. I just introduce it here. So this is where I'm going to start reading. So in 2002, Brady filed suit against Craig for breach of contract. After a bench trial, the court found that Brady had proven her case by a preponderance of the evidence and awarded her commissions. They awarded commissions. In doing so, it rejected Craig's defense that the contract was invalid because Craig was a minor at the time he entered into it. Craig appealed from the ensuing judgment. At the general proposition, so we get to procedural history, and then the next paragraph is a rule. So that's why I look for the procedural history, is because then I'm going to get the rule. So parental consent is required for the provision of services to minors for the simple reason that minors may disaffirm their own contracts to acquire such services. So here they're giving us a little bit of policy. Policy is not a rule. Policy is the reason for the rule. So I would like to identify it, but it's not something, for those of you that run out of time, when we see policy, we're going to be like, all right, if I have time, I'm going to use it, but I'm not going to worry about absolutely including it. So according to Columbia Family Code Section 6701, that's just a little aside, I never write that stuff. Just get to the rule and just cite to the code. A minor may make a contract in the same manner as an adult, subject to the power of disaffirmance, period, is what I would do. So I would do CFC 6701. And then again, so I'm going to show you how I write these rules a little bit. In turn, Columbia Family Code Section 6702 states that generally, so I like to strike this stuff out. Generally, a contract of a minor may be disaffirmed by the minor or by the minor's parent or guardian before majority or within a reasonable time afterwards. The law shields minors from their lack of judgment and experience, and under certain conditions vests in them the right to disaffirm their contracts. Although in many such instances, let me just highlight the rule. There. And then we have some policy. The law shields minors from their lack of judgment and experience, and under certain conditions vests in them the right to disaffirm. Although in many instances, such disaffirmance may work a hardship upon those who deal with the minor, the right to avoid contracts is conferred by law upon a minor for his protection against his own improvidence and the designs of others. It is the policy of the law to protect a minor against himself and his indiscretions and immaturity, as well as against the machinations of other people, and to discourage adults from contracting with a minor. Any loss occasioned by the disaffirmance of a minor's contract might have been avoided by declining to enter into the contract in the first place. Simply stated, one who provides a minor with services does so at his or her own risk. So a lot of policy here. That's a lot to type that we don't necessarily need to include. So you might just distill it down if you were going to include it, but you can write a passing essay without doing it, or you can write a passing PT. So one of the things that I do like to emphasize and teach, and I want you all to focus on, so many people focus on writing answers that look like the model answers. That's not where it's at. And that is just frustrating. So for you guys, and also for me when I see people doing it, first focus on completion and like, all right, I'm just going to just answer the question. And that's really all you have time to do is you're just going to answer the question just enough. And that's it. And then once you can get through it and do it comfortably, where you're just doing enough to be like, all right, I'm doing just enough to be able to get a passing score. Then you want to know, how do I push it up? I don't want you to have a perfect first issue and not have a good second and third issue. Does that make sense? Right? It's like you got to do like addition and subtraction before you can do multiplication and division, before you can do calculus and like advanced quantum physics and whatever, theoretical math. So it's doing that stuff. It's like, you've got to just take it step by step. Okay. And Jilinda, hey, and I got your email. I got to write back. Oh, hey, Brooke. The library cases, somebody asked, is it just a coincidence or do the library cases tend to align with each call of the question? They do. That does happen often. When they put these together, they're really not trying to hide the ball, or usually not. Occasionally they do. But it will often be that way. There will sometimes, like this case, you can use on the first and second issues, truthfully. But this case, we're going to see in the analysis what it's really to be used for. And then the third case deals with the third issue. All right, let's keep going. All right. So I just want to point out, if I was going to do the policy, they're taking, like, they do this all the time. They'll go on this long rambling thing, and then they'll be like, in other words, but. And that last little thing, the in other words, really distills everything down into a succinct thing. So into a succinct statement. So just showing you that. So look out for when they say in other words, or simply stated, or something along those lines. It's very common. Okay. But still, just policy. They haven't talked about the facts of the case. They haven't analyzed the facts here. Then it says no specific language is required to communicate an intent to disaffirm a minor's contract. And it says rule. A minor's contract may be avoided by any word or any act or word disclosing an unequivocal intent to repudiate its binding force and effect. Okay. And then here's the analysis. We find that Martha's certified letter was sufficient to constitute a disaffirmance because it stated that Martha and Craig were terminating the contract. This is the analysis. So do you see how little analysis there is? And that's all that matters for this particular issue. And so I like to point this out because you see there's these several paragraphs here. You might get so deep into the facts, but so much of what they talk about there is completely irrelevant. It doesn't change the outcome. Here, what matters is that our letter said they were terminating the contract, and that's it. All right. I'm going to skip the third case, but I just want to point something out here. So here's facts. Sorry. Right. We could say, you might think this is procedure and you might start reading it here because it's talking about their theory. All right. So procedural history. Okay. For self-theory, trial and appeal. So it goes into a procedural history and then they go through this. And we see that they do cite to the law. They do get into some of the rules here. Sorry, I'm going through this case just really quickly because I just want to show you something. So then they get into authority. Oh yeah, and here's actual authority, procedure history. Here's the rule, and I would label this. So actual authority and then apparent authority. Okay. Okay. So I just want to show you the amount of analysis. So they talk about actual authority in this paragraph that I have in the middle. So then it says here, Purcell claims, section that is. It says Purcell claims that the evidence introduced at trial shows that at the time of his dealings with Laredo, Hand did not and could not reasonably believe that it wished him to enter into any contract of sale. So it gives the theories and it shows what parties argued. I don't care what the parties argued. I care about what this court says about the argument. Then it says, in contrast, Laredo's theory at trial and on appeal, and then it goes through it. It gives some rules on apparent authority. Now, real quick, the first two issues are addressed by the first two cases. I should have said in the last one, it was talking about, did the letter disaffirm? That goes to issue 2. So this has to be issue 3. And you notice we're talking about actual authority, apparent authority. And you always want to think about, this is dealing with a concept that we know for the bar with authority. And you want to think about the rules and really, what are these rules? A lot of people miss this. So, all right, here, and there's a couple of points that I want to make here. So now it says Laredo's theory prevailed below. It prevails here as well. So this is getting into my analysis. Yeah, it prevailed below, it prevails here as well. This is now the court talking about, we know it's the analysis because we're talking about the parties. So that's number 1. How do you know we're switching from rules to analysis? Number 2, the court is saying what they think about the arguments. That's what we care about. That's the analysis. And then you see how much analysis is here. It's this whole section. If we compare that, right, to the blue here, not very much. And also the blue here is not very much. That gives you a hint as to the weight of each issue. So the first 2 issues, and I'm going to give you a hint right now. The second issue actually is a good counter argument also. But so the first 2 issues are smaller, but the last issue is much bigger. So this is something that I just like to caution people about. When you are in a PT, use the library as a guide for how to allocate your time. So many people write this PT and they do such a nice job on the first issue, but the first issue is really straightforward. Yes, you can just affirm it. People go all into all the policy, et cetera. And I'm like, that's great. And then they run out of time on the third issue, which is really where the weight is. So just be really cautious. Does that make sense? Okay, good. I want to hear from everybody. Okay, good. There we all are. Okay, good. Getting all those messages in. Thank you. And PTs are not generally broken down where the weight from a third issue, like not necessarily, but they do this on essays all the time and they do it on PTs. So it's really that you need to triage your issues. So when you're in the library, when you're doing this deconstruction, you want to pay attention to how it's put together. Is the weight more on this issue or on this other issue? Or is it even? And then how do we allocate our time? Because you don't just want to start going and hope that you magically get through it. Not magically, that's a little sarcastic, but like you have to plan your time very affirmatively and effectively. So that's what I like to really stress. That's why I tell everybody you've got to practice these under time conditions from the get-go. Because you have to see, okay, what is it like to do that? All right. I'm going to do a little bit of, we've got like 10 minutes. I'm going to do a little bit here. I'm going to bring this doc up onto my computer on the iPad. Thanks for bearing with me. I feel like because I haven't had any sleep because I was stuck in the Minneapolis airport all night. I'm usually like so well rested when I go into this, but I love doing this stuff. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the kind words. All right. I feel like I'm stumbling over my words a little bit more than I normally do. Let's see. Okay. Screens. Let me just get minutes. Okay. I've got them both. This. All right. So now you should be able to see both a little bit. Okay. So is Ryan able to disaffirm? So the first case, so as I was going through and making notes, I would have been writing it on here. I was doing it on my iPad, but you should be noting as you go through. So is Ryan able to, I'm going to use Miller here and then Miller. I'm also going to use the Columbia Family Code, CFC. Okay. This is Brady and the CFC. I'm going to do a rule proof of Brady here. And it's identifiable rule is going to do just the agency rule. And then also Laredo. Okay, so after you're done with the going through step 4, you would have these notes in your answer. So as soon as you finish the case, as soon as you finish going through it, annotate and say, okay, this is where I'm going to pull the rules for this. Yeah. So after you go through each case, you're going to just annotate your answer a little bit. Because this is the thing, we're deconstructing it. We're just pulling it apart. And that's the point of step 4. We do want to have some understanding, but a lot of times the understanding doesn't come in until you are writing your rules and drafting your rule proofs. I said in Laredo was different. It didn't say the court held. They don't always say that. You have to determine what did they say. So in Laredo, the actual court that did the analysis, they held that there was a parent authority. There was an actual authority. There was a parent authority and why. So, all right. But I'm not going to focus on that just yet. So I'm going to just grab some of these rules. So 6701. So I'm just going to put some of these rules in and you can just copy them as they are written. So a minor may make a contract in the same manner as an adult, subject to the power of disaffirmance. 6701. You don't have to write Columbia Family Code and do all of that stuff. Just get it in there. Just shorthand everything. All it in okay first draft. A contract of a minor may be disaffirmed by the minor or parent or guardian before majority or within a reasonable time afterwards. And then maybe it's okay. And then, however, and then I'm going to do the second one. A minor may disaffirm the contract. It may not disaffirm the contract if the contract is to pay the reasonable value of things. And I'm just copying this. Things necessary. I'm on 6703 right now. Necessary for the support of the minor or the minor's family. The things have been actually furnished and the contract And notice I'm not putting in the A, B, C in parentheses. That it just takes me too long to do the parentheses. So I just cut it. And is entered into by the minor when not under the care of a parent or guardian able to provide for the minor. Great. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to draft a quick rule proof of Miller. If you need help with doing the rule proofs, I really encourage you to take the class. Definitely get the book. I'm going to have some promo stuff happening that I'm going to give you tonight if you're here live. Let me grab a rule proof of go to Miller. So this is where I just care about the analysis. So that's why it's important to like annotate this stuff. So say in Miller, the court held. So when I'm writing my rule proof, I'm answering the question in the heading, but about the parties in the case, right? Not our case, the case in the library. So in Miller, the court held the minor could disaffirm the contract because the money was not expended for the minor or the minor's family for things necessary for their support, because at all relevant times, the minor's parent had an independent. So all I'm doing is saying in the case name, the court held, what is the holding on the issue? Like yes or no to this issue, but regarding the party in Miller. Could the minor and Miller disaffirm the contract? Yes or no? So yes, the court held the minor could disaffirm the contract. This is the holding. And then the facts and reasoning. So I'm just extracting all of the facts that are in what I have highlighted, the facts and whatever reasoning they give. So I'm modifying it a little bit just so it makes sense structurally as a sentence, but I'm really just extracting those facts. The minor's parent had an independent and substantial source of income, and the parent expended the money for the good things of life and not necessities. Does that make sense to everybody how I did that? And you have to practice it. You have to practice it in order to get good at it. Does that make sense? I'm going to people tell me in the chat. Good. Okay, good. Okay, good. Perfect. I love hearing from everybody. All right. Good. Okay. So I'm just going to go up here, right? I'm going to pretend that we did. So step 5, you would draft all of your rules and all of your rule proofs at the same time. Because when we're done with step 5, we are done with the library. I'm not touching that again. It's just off to the side. So then if we go to the file, let's read through this. Says, I met with longtime client Janice Wright yesterday. So one thing is, it's a longtime client. Does it sound like Janet? Does it sound like Ryan's mother? So one of the things for disaffirming a contract is the minor is under the care of a parent who is unable to provide for the minor. Does it sound like Janice is unable to provide for Ryan? Just based on this fact alone? No. If you look, we didn't have money when I was growing up. We didn't have lawyers, right? My friends joke, like Maureen's my family lawyer, right? My friends point to me. They're like, most people don't have just like a family lawyer on retainer, right? That's usually not like a thing, right? For like most people. So I already see that. Okay. So probably not necessary. And then also, what is at issue here? What did he buy? Ryan bought video game extras. Is a video game extra a necessary of life? No, it's not. I always joke. It's funny. I was just with him in Wyoming. Why I'm sleep deprived because I got stuck. But my brother would say, yes, they are necessary, right? But they're not. So I'm going to now just do my analysis, apply the log, the fact. So here, and I'm just going to get to it. So just as the purchases This is in Miller were for the good things of life and not necessities. The purchases here are also for the good things of life because Ryan entered the contract to purchase video game options, which is not necessary to live. Okay, now I want to talk about the other elements. The contract is entered into by a minor when not under the care of a parent or guardian able to provide for the minor. I'm going to say, additionally, Ryan was not in a scenario. So I've already analogized to Miller. I could do a little bit more, but I'm just going to do enough and move on. But here, I also want to show that you don't actually have to do this, but I want to show that Ryan was also, he had a guardian who could pay for him. Right? Ryan was not in a scenario where his parent or guardian could not care for him because I always want to because Janice appears to have means to care for Ryan, given that she is a long time client of the firm. And most people without means don't have, or I don't like writing in the negative. And one with a long time lawyer probably has some means as financial means. And what's the other fact? What is another fact that shows that she probably could care for him? Anybody? Yeah, she's got, oh, hey, ours. Yeah, stable income, the credit card, right? To me, it's the credit card. Probably send it to me. And the fact that she has a credit card with apparently a high limit indicates she is able to provide for Ryan because people without financial, again, means usually don't have credit cards with high limits. Okay. And then a conclusion. Thus, Ryan is able to disaffirm the contract. Yeah. Able to charge. Yeah, exactly. So good. So this is what, at a minimum, you need to absolutely show this, right? This is making it, let's see. This makes it even a little bit better. And then adding this part on takes it up to another level, right? So it's how deep are we going into the analysis? That's what pushes our analysis up. Now, if you do all of this, but you don't finish the PT, that's a problem. Julinda and Anita, you two should study together. Yeah, and you guys will get there. You guys will absolutely get there. All right, that's it for today. I'm going to go sleep for 12 hours since I didn't get any. But, I'm going to, just as throwing out there, we do have the PT Bootcamp and it's starting next Wednesday in the evening. It's starting next Wednesday in the evening. It's $299. The full courses are still available. You can do mastering the PT, mastering the essays, etc. Also, if you guys haven't had a chance to meet with me or my team and you want to, please feel free to set up a time to chat with us. You can do that. I'll put the link in the chat right now if you want to do that. And yeah, you can absolutely just do the boot camp. Yeah. All right. Everybody that's here, hang out. I'll give you a little promo. And everybody that's watching the recording later, etc. Please, thank you so much for watching. All right.